The following is an Operation Podcast production.
Because I was always on the hunt for other people to like me because I wasn't really getting it at home, I landed right in the hands of a pedophile. It was the beginning of like a 11-year run of full-on debauchery and pain. But at the beginning, it saved me. It's like legit saved me because I was like suicidal. You know, I was just like hated who I was because of like my scenario, my environment.
Well, you'd said I was always looking to escape, and this was just another pathway to escape.
I kind of remember coming in and out of consciousness. She dragged me into the bathroom, threw me in the bathtub, turned on the cold water. I was like coming in and out of consciousness in the bathtub, looking up at this cold shower on me, like knowing this is the end, like having that thought, okay, you've done it, you're gonna die.
All I have is this moment. All I can do is put one foot in front of the other. All I can do is say yes to this moment in time, what I'm gonna do next and what I'm not gonna do next. Hey everybody, we have got an incredible episode of Look at Me Now. It was actually a very impromptu episode. I don't want to reveal too much more about that. You'll hear it on the episode, but I've got Michael Chernow here, and he is a serial entrepreneur who is up to really big things, like being the founder of Creatures of Habit. And he is a husband, he is a father, and he is going way deep with us. Tune into this.
Are you ready for a wild ride? I'm Alexis Artin, and I invite you to strap in because this is more than a podcast. This is Look at Me Now.
Hey, everybody. I am so excited. I have a man in the chair. Ow!
Let's go.
Let's go. And it's not just any man. It's Michael Chernow. And he is somebody who was really big in the restaurant business, has made a pivot, now owns and is the founder of Creatures of Habit. And he is an entrepreneur, he's a husband, he's a father, and he's here to spill it all with us. Hi. Thank you for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
I'm so psyched that it worked out. Like literally, y'all people, I just want to tell you. So I had a totally different guest booked for today, and literally at the last second, it sort of had to get rescheduled and fell apart. And as luck would have it, this human being happened to be in the building recording podcasts nearby. And so I yanked him into this studio. And so this is like in real time happening that I have this remarkable guest that literally was divinely ordained to be with us today.
Yeah,
so
I was kind of like tackled in the hallway.
In the hallway.
You know, that was it. Now we're here.
Now we're here, and that shows my strength that I tackled him in the hallway. Thank you so much for being willing to like drop in with us. And I'm literally just meeting you. We're all just meeting you. For those that aren't already familiar with you that are listening, and so let's like really meet you. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to the makings of the man. So tell us, like, from where do you come? Tell us your childhood.
Well, I mean, I think, you know, like the idea of this, I love the idea of the podcast because I have a real sort of overcoming adversity story. 20 years and I don't know, 3 weeks ago was a very, very, very different human mentally, physically, and spiritually than I am now. And I don't say that because I've grown over the last 20 years, because I certainly have, but I come from a world of addiction. And I was deeply addicted to everything that would get me out of myself. Everything. Drugs, alcohol, food, you name it, I was addicted. And so I've been in recovery now I just celebrated 20 years in August.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I feel like, you know, this is a kind of like a perfect opportunity to, and also for me, like being on a podcast like this is super cathartic because I do believe, you know, you say your mess becomes your message. That is my life. I believe that I was like placed here to go through what I went through to get to where I'm at, but ultimately be able to share that story. No holds barred, no boundaries, and I don't have any boundaries around it because I am a believer that like one word heard by somebody on the other side of this podcast could change their life. And I know for me, there were moments in time And not just when I was, in active addiction, but on the other side of it, where I just had to hear that one thing that would just push me through to not have to feel the need to want to escape and actually look the beast in the eyes and take the step forward to get through what I got to go through. So I grew up in New York City. I grew up in Manhattan, Big Apple. I grew up really sort of just like at that point, at that time. And I think still to this day, but really like that's when sort of like modern culture was really taking shape. And I was born in 1980. So New York City in the 80s and the 90s was kind of this epicenter of culture. And in fashion, in food, in street culture, in really kind of everything, right? Like Manhattan, New York City was just sort of like the cesspool for innovation globally.
Yes.
And I was like a perfect, I was just like a perfect, like sponge for that. I also believe that I'm a real observer and I'm a creator. I'm like a visionary and a dreamer more than I'm like a left brain analytical, person. I'm just like, I like to listen and I like to act. And I typically go with my gut and I'm not much of a, hey, let me look at all the data to make decisions. So for someone like me in New York City, like I was just taking it all in, right? I had a really rough childhood in the house. My father was physically sick. He was a juvenile diabetic. He had heart disease. He died very young, but that impacted his mental state. He was mentally ill, and he was physically and verbally abusive to everyone in the house. And we lived in a small one-bedroom apartment, my mother, my sister, my father, and I, and he also was a hoarder. So it was rough in there. And I wanted to escape from as early as I can remember. And I did. I escaped often. I would sleep over at any friend's house I could from as early as I could. And I remember, very clearly, and this story is like pretty significant for me, but I remember at my friend Ross Delafield's house, I was like, it had to have been first grade. And I was at my friend Ross Delafield's house in a play date. And I was in a lot of play dates because my father was like non-existent and my mother was a secretary. So she had to work until 7 o'clock every night. My father had nothing to do with us. And he would lock himself in like a corner of the house. And so I was just kind of like pawned off wherever I could get pawned off. And I remember sitting at dinner with them thinking, wow, I've never had dinner with my family like together at a table. And I remember thinking, oh, this is cool. And I remember thinking to myself, I have to get Ross's parents to like me so that they'll let me sleep over here. And it was like a very intentional, strategic, like, thought to get something from them. And that was like my first, I think, like cognizant introduction to like what I say and what I do and how I act will ultimately get me further. And so I did just that. I was like intentional about how I made them feel about me. I was like very kind and like intentionally like thinking about my, what I said and my how polite I was. And anyway, I would sleep over at Ross's house all the time, because it worked.
It worked.
And so that sort of like painted the path. And then, it got really ugly at home. I ended up, because I was always on the hunt for other people to like me because I wasn't really getting it at home, I landed right in the hands of a pedophile. And I loved this guy, by the way, like genuinely loved him. He was like a father figure to me. He would take me fishing, and there was other kids that he was grooming. So it was like a little crew of like, 8-year-olds, right? But he was a pedophile. And he was also like an auxiliary cop, and like he had this thing down. He was the Cub Scout leader. He was the sports coach. He had it all down.
Yep.
But he put us in the bathtub together and put shampoo all over our bodies and like touched us, and like we'd sleep over at his house. I can't believe my parents let me sleep over at his house. But I would sleep over at this 45-year-old single man's apartment, you know what I mean? And I used to beg to do it. And I didn't realize, of course, what was happening until I was like 16, 17 years old when I began to like want to kill him, murder him. But at the time, I was getting what I needed, which was like, unless I've completely disassociated with it, there was no rape or anything like super like rough like that. There could be a chance that I totally like blocked it out, but I haven't gotten that far in therapy yet where that's been unearthed. I've talked about this and come to terms with it and feel like there was a lot of shame around it for years for me, but now I'm like, it happened to me, and now I can tell the story, and maybe somebody listening can feel a little bit more relief. So that happened, and then, you know, when I was 12 years old, it was like the summer between 6th grade and 7th grade, and I was at my friend's like weekend house, and we had already been smoking cigarettes, and she had weed, and so we smoked weed, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it.
I found it.
This is it.
I found it. I had the same experience, probably around the same age as you. Yes.
Yeah, I was just like, I'm all good.
Yeah.
I don't have to be me anymore. Like I could be me, but much better version.
Totally.
And so, and I had also at that point, you know, it got really physical at home. I started fighting back physically with my father, and so I just was like basically like out of the house, you know, like I was sleeping I played hockey. I was sleeping at the hockey rink. Like it was the beginning of like a 11-year run of just full on debauchery and pain. But at the beginning, it saved me. It's like legit saved me because I was like suicidal. I had suicidal ideologies, and, you know, I just like hated who I was because of like my scenario, my environment.
Well, you'd said I was always looking to escape, and this was just another pathway to escape.
Sure, exactly.
And maybe even a better pathway, because it's you know, you might have been able to escape the house, but you couldn't escape what was going on inside of yourself until enter, you know, drugs.
Right.
And then that's the ultimate escape, right? From that sort of like internal thing that you have to carry around with you all day, every day.
100%. And for me, like, I thank God for them, honestly, because probably for the first 5 years, it was, I'm not gonna lie, like it was a lot of fun. You know what I mean? I was a young teenager in New York City, my parents had no control over me. I was out in the street, and I moved out of their apartment when I was 15. The child services got involved. They had threatened to put me in foster care. My mother knew that it was safer for me out of the house than in the house at that point, but she was terrified of my father, terrified. And she was diagnosed with something called abused wife syndrome. So she just normalized the abnormal.
Absolutely.
And she was stuck, you know, she was stuck. And I said to her, look, I'm not going to foster care. You know, like that's not happening. So you can write that off. Like it's gonna be like, you know, catch me if you can, basically. And I was like, you do what you gotta do. I'm sorry, I'm leaving. So that's what's happening. And I packed a bag and I was out. And I moved into an NYU dorm with this girl that I met. And then after she graduated she became a sophomore, she got an apartment. I moved into her apartment with her. And I was crazy. I was a crazy kid running the streets of New York, doing drugs, selling drugs, you know, but a good gal, good person, you know, just like under the guise of this thing. And I lived my life like that. And then, you know, it was party drugs for a while, and then I kind of got into heavier stuff as I got a little older. And then it was like just cocaine and alcohol for a long time. And that got really ugly really fast. And all sorts of things happened. I got involved with a lot of bad people, scathed, you know, going away to prison, and, you know, just like it was just all ugly. And then at the very end, I got violent because I would just black out and get drunk, and I was like angry. And so if you like looked at me the wrong way, even though we're having a nice conversation, I was known to just like
fly off the handle.
Like
your dad.
Yeah, exactly. And I would make you pay.
Sure.
And And I hated that because people would say to me the next day, they'd be like, dude, we can't hang out with you. Like, you're a recluse, man. Like, I had burned bridges. And anyway, I met a girl. She was into heroin. I, of course, was happy to be with her and do that. And I overdosed. And she, like, was terrified when that happened. I kind of remember coming in and out of consciousness. She dragged me into the bathroom, threw me in the bathtub, turned on the cold water. I was like coming in and out of consciousness in the bathtub, looking up at this cold shower on me, like knowing this is the end, like having that thought, okay, you've done it, you're gonna die. And I didn't die, of course. I'm sitting across from you. But 2 weeks later was, 2 weeks, I thought that was like, I remember leaving that apartment in the East Village in New York City, swearing to God, this is it. Like, dude, you this is too much. Like, you've just been given a second chance. It doesn't happen. You have to stop this. And I couldn't stop. I didn't know how to. I didn't have the resources or tools. But 2 weeks later, I had blacked out in my apartment. I had slept through work, and I'd always had a legitimate job in a restaurant or a nightclub or something where it was easy for me to do what I'd like to do. And everybody around me was doing the same shit. But that morning or afternoon that I woke up and I'd slept through work, my boss and I'd had this job that was like the only thing tethering me to life. I'd been there for 2 years. He partied, I partied, everybody partied, but I had slept through work too many times. And he was just like, come down, man. I lived above the restaurant. And he was like, come down to the restaurant. And I was like, oh, man. Came down and he was like, I got to fire you, kid. Like, I love you. You're 23, but I can't pay you to die. Like, I can't watch you die. Everybody around you knows you're going to die. You look like death. You look like death. You have to figure your shit out. And I begged him for my job. I said, please, Frank, I'll never do this again. Like, I promise you. He was like, no. He's like, I can't put you in this. I can't do it. If you die on my watch, and I kind of like thought of this guy as like, I was always looking for a father. Always looking for a father, Anyway, he said, look, if you get sober and show up to the restaurant at 8 o'clock in the morning to clean the restaurant with the porters, I'll pay you hourly. And let's just do that for a while. I can't give you a job in the restaurant, but I'll do this if that's going to help you. And so that's what I did. And I have not had a drink or a drug from that very day. And my life changed. And what happened was I made a phone call to an old bartender friend of mine who took me in when I was a kid. She was like, I had a massive crush on her. She was beautiful. But I knew that she had gotten sober, and I knew that she was dating a guy that was also sober. And I called her and I said, I'm ready. I'm ready. I feel I'm done. There's a moment of like, with addicts, like you get like a short moment of clarity that if they reach out their hand and you can catch it in time, you got a shot, right? Because it's them. It's nobody forcing them. It's like, it's them ready to do it. And she hopped into action, called her boyfriend. Marcus showed up an hour later. And this guy was a Muay Thai kickboxing competitor, tough dude, covered in tattoos. And I looked at him and I was like, wait a second, you're sober? I was like, I could do that. Like this guy looks like he's a cool dude. I thought it was like the end of the world. I'm like, I'm never going to date a girl again. I'm going to be sitting in a library. Like, I just didn't know, You
didn't have a model.
I didn't have a model. And so he changed my life between Frank's motivation and Marcus coming at the right time. I told him my story. He listened to me for 4 hours, and he said, I could help you, man. I could help you if you're willing. You just got to be willing, and then I'm gonna hopefully get you to a place where like your will won't be as powerful as God's will, because that's where it's gonna go for you. He wrote me a plan. He said, this is what I want you to do. And I mean, the plan was basically like, you wake up as early as you can in the morning. You go right into the bathroom. You brush your teeth, you wash your face, you hit your knees, meaning you drop down on your knees and you ask God for help. I don't care if you believe in God, don't believe in God, are religious or not religious, spiritual, not spiritual. He was like, you don't know how to ask for help. And if you start your day asking for help this way, potentially it'll just motivate you to start asking for more help. So this is what I want you to do. I don't care what you say as long as you just say help. So he said, drop on your knees. And then he said, as soon as you're done with that, go into your bedroom, make your bed, put on a pair of sneakers, go downstairs and take a walk immediately. Get outside and move your body. And that could be a block. That could be 5 blocks. That could be a mile. That could be 10. I don't care if you walk or run. I just want you to move your body. And then as soon as you get back, I want you to have a bowl of oatmeal. Why oatmeal? Because it's easy, it's satiating, it's healthy, and it's accessible. Super easy to make. And then when you're done with that, go to this sober community meeting, tell them who you are and why you're there. Your name is Michael, you're an alcoholic and a drug addict. Get out of that meeting, come down to the gym, and I'm going to train with you. And then after that, you're going to have chicken and broccoli, you're going to take a nap, you're going to go to work, you're going to go to bed as early as you can. Before you go to bed, you're going to drop on your knees and you're just going to say thank you, go to sleep, and rinse and repeat. And I was like, all right. And that was the beginning of my journey, you know?
I mean, it really does come down to something so simple as here are the basics, right? We can embellish all we want in this life, right? We can layer on and add on, but really all we're doing is taking away from the simplicity of that gratitude, the simplicity of all I have is this moment. All I can do is put one foot in front of the other. All I can do is say yes to this moment in time, what I'm going to do next and what I'm not going to do next. And I think that so often gets lost in the shuffle of everyday lives. Forget, somebody who's going through something as extreme as you were. And it's such a valuable lesson for anybody that is listening to take that with them. That, sometimes we really get caught in the weeds in life. And, as a cancer survivor, I could, I have that to compare it to. Mm-hmm. Like, is this, crisis moment, I'm making it a crisis in my head. Is this really a crisis compared to driving to chemo? No. Mm-hmm. Right? Is this really a crisis? Is this really a necessity? Right? Versus just coming back to the simpleness of just put one foot in front of the other. Just take the next aligned action. Mm-hmm. And I had a guest on earlier this season, Britt Frank, who was talking about her addiction and how it came down to, she was on the phone with like a suicide crisis hotline, really just at death's door, just ready to end it all. And how the person on the other end of the phone had to just get these little micro yeses from her, right? Like, can you see the refrigerator? Are you willing to look at the refrigerator? Mm-hmm. Are you willing to walk over to the refrigerator? Are you willing to open the refrigerator? Mm-hmm. Are you willing to grab the yogurt that you see? Are you willing to open the yogurt? Are you willing to take one spoonful of that yogurt? And literally for hours, just getting these little micro yeses from her to transition her from death's door to some sort of potential or possibility for a future. And it sounds like that was sort of a very similar process for you. It wasn't so much like, he's like walking you through one thing at a time, but he gave you a schedule of like, these are the only things that you have to care about right now.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we as human beings are wired to want to win. And it doesn't mean win the race. It doesn't mean like be the best, even though that's nice. But I think the way our brain is wired is feeling a little burst of confidence as often as possible. Little wins. Just boom, 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 boom. And we have the power, what I've learned throughout my journey, is to completely control those wins, specifically in the beginning of the day. So for me, habits have become such a huge part of my life. Structure, since I've met that guy, Marcus, has become such a huge part of my life. And the way I kind of describe it is like, if every day we look at our lives as an opportunity to like build something, right? Like we have a day we could build. Wake up with your eyes open, blessed, right? Like you are alive. You have an opportunity to build. Now, if you were thinking about it sort of like logically, when you're thinking about building, call it a structure. The best way to start that structure is to like excavate a little bit, pour concrete, and then begin like the actual structure on this rock hard foundation, right? Like on this concrete foundation. If you just said, all right, well, I'm just going to start building on dirt, right? And I'm just going to start building the same structure on dirt. When it rains,
you're fucked.
well, that dirt is going to turn to mud.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's just like the way it is, right? So like, I think of my day like that. If I want my day to be a structure that can withstand all the elements, I'm going to want to pour some concrete. I'm going to want to start with a foundation that's going to support whatever shows up, right? And if I just like get up and like willy-nilly sort of like
slapstick things together, right?
Yeah, like the chances of success for that day are slim. And at the end of the day, yesterday's gone. There's nothing you can do. Not a single human being has ever been able to successfully go back into the past and change shit. So you could just kiss that goodbye. Tomorrow,
no DeLoreans here.
Yeah, tomorrow, right? Tomorrow is not guaranteed, you know? And yeah, like the chances of tomorrow not happening are slim, right? But one day that's going to be the case, right? So
absolutely,
it's not guaranteed. So today's your life. Right here, right now is your life. You get to do shit here and now, not tomorrow, not yesterday. Right now is when everything happens. And so if you can set yourself up for success. And so I literally live my life under those conditions. Not that I don't plan. I'm a business person. Obviously, I plan.
Yeah.
But I also know that those plans don't mean shit unless I am building a day at a time, right? And so I have a very I'm very passionate about morning routine, and I think that, you know, and I've dealt with mental health issues, right? And I also hate when people just say mental health, because like there's mentally healthy, right? And then there's also mentally unhealthy. Mental health, for whatever reason, is like in most people's minds is a problem. Oh, mental health. Like they're thinking, oh, I've got an issue. Actually, like I've dealt with mental health in such a positive, incredible way, where I've, you know, like created this mindset to not only want to win, but to win based on these little wins that I've controlled and put in place. And then I've also dealt with depression, right? And insecurity, like we all have. And so I just think that starting out your day with a structure really does help us sort of get closer to a potential goal or a dream or a vision that we have for our lives.
And I think that there's also something to be said for holding that accountability of every action counts, every moment counts. I think I was listening to something recently and they were talking about how, you know, people will just go, oh, well, it doesn't count, or it won't count until I'm this far along, or, you know, whether that's how people eat. Well, you know, when I eat in the car, it doesn't count. You know what I mean? Or when it's my birthday, it doesn't count, or whatever, right? But it's like, but those calories are adding up. They actually do count. And this is not to like calorie shame or anything like that, right? I mean, but it's more to like make the point of, you know, oh, in my business, like, well, today didn't count because we didn't really make any money, but tomorrow's going to count. It's like, no, every day counts. Every time you throw that ring, whether you hit or you miss, it counts. That's a turn that you've taken.
Totally. Right?
So there's a power in making those choices. Every choice that you make does carry weight. It's about holding yourself accountable because nobody else is coming to do it for you.
Sure. And I also think that like you're not going to win every day, right?
No,
like you're not like, even if you're like maybe reframing it like, oh, it's my birthday, so I can have that, you know, bacon cheeseburger and the cake too, right? Great. Like, don't play it off like it doesn't count. It fucking counts.
Right.
But it's your birthday.
Right.
Like, celebrate that.
Right.
Right. I also kind of think about my life because I'm also an athlete, right? So I've competed in all sorts of crazy sports over the last 20 years that I've been on this journey.
You're just an extremist.
Fitness has been just a huge component of my ability to express and to blow steam off, right? And also there's a real byproduct to being a fitness enthusiast.
Totally.
You get to feel great and look great, right?
I'm a master embodiment teacher, so body is my number one language.
Yeah, I think what really helped me when I was coming out of that dark place was this guy was like, hey, I'm going to help you get your body in check. Like, I'm going to help you get your health and your body, but I really want to see if we can get some increased confidence in your life by seeing that you have the ability to change what you look like. And I was like,
and change how you feel by way of, right?
100%. I didn't know that my physical appearance was going to change the way I felt, but it happened quick and it was very impactful for me. It was super impactful. Now that can get really scary and dark for a lot of people too.
Because you could be addicted to that as well.
Exactly. So I think that self-awareness is obviously plays a big role in everything, right? And it's hard too, but at the end of the day, I would much rather have somebody in the gym for 2 hours than smoking crack and doing the things that happen when you do that. Right.
Yes.
So I do think that it's a much healthier path. And for me, by the way, I've had to sort of check myself hey, are you you don't need to compete as a pro bodybuilder, you don't have to, even though I have, because I am an extreme human. But anyway, I just think that there's this it's the 80-20 for me, where I really have been able to balance this. So 80% of the time I am dialed in with my fitness and nutrition, my sleep and my mindset. 80% of the time I'm in. I know I'm able to to say no to this if it's not in the plan, and go all in on that and work out and do all those things. And then 20% of the time I give myself absolute freedom. And that means if I want to hang out with my wife and let the kids watch a show and just lie around, I'll do that on a Saturday or a Sunday because that's what I want to do and I've put in the work, right? But I think for the purpose of the show, I came out of that crazy time, and 7 months after that, I met this woman, and I was told very clearly, you can't, in this program I was in, they were dating in the beginning is a mistake, because if that person decides that you're not the one for them and they split, the chances of you being upset and sad about that are great, and that might lead you to want to
trigger.
Yeah. But I didn't listen, and I fell in love with this woman, and luckily, knock on wood, I mean, she's my partner forever. We got married and
worked out.
It worked out.
Yeah, knock on wood.
Knock on wood. And that led to just me, going back to school and then getting a degree and then writing a business plan. And, I still worked at that restaurant that Frank owned, and I worked there for 8 years, and he, I owe him my life. The guy really gave me a shot and gave me a real second chance. And I wrote a business plan and I put it in front of all the regulars at that restaurant, and 14 of them wrote me a check for my first business. Yeah. And because they all these guys and gals that were coming to this restaurant for years, 2 days, 3 days a week, watched me get hired at 20, as a mess as a kid. Yeah, they watched me clean my shit up, find my wife, go back to school, write this plan. These guys were like, holy shit, this dude is after life. And they invested in it. And I opened up my first business called The Meatball Shop in New York City, and small little restaurant. And it just it wasn't a home run. It was a fucking grand slam. And we were, within a year, we were cooking meatballs on Good Morning America, Today's Show, Jay Leno, Chelsea Handler, Jimmy Fallon. It was crazy. It was crazy. The media just ate it up. They're like two best friends from childhood open up a meatball restaurant in New York City. Anyway, it was nuts. We had one investor that was super excited about it, said, hey, like, I'm opening up my bank account. You guys just tell me what you need. We'll scale this thing. And Daniel and I, neither of us went to college. We both were, culinary school grads, and we just like put the right foot in front of the left and started building the business. And we opened up 6 of them. And then I sold equity in the business in 2014. And I wanted to see if I had what it took to be a serial entrepreneur or restaurateur at that point. And I opened up a seafood restaurant. Right before I opened up the seafood restaurant, we had our first kid, our first son, Finley. And Finley came, which was one of the best days of my life. And then the seafood restaurant came, and then I got a TV show, and like just all these amazing things happened. It was just kind of nuts, right? It was like, and I was just literally praying every day. Again, still to this day, I'm not a religious guy. I am a very spiritual person after time, but I pray my ass off. I don't know who's listening or what's listening, but I believe that, like, if you can take the time every day to get humble and just lay it all out there, it just leads you in a great direction, and I do that. And so
I mean, I'm curious because, there's so much, how do I want to say this? Well, there's so much that's spoken about the world of recovery in terms of, once an addict, always an addict. And every day it's about getting up and making the choice to stay sober and all of that stuff. And I would assume over the last 20 plus years of sobriety that there have been moments that have been a challenge for you. And what do you credit with staying the course in your sobriety?
Well, the earliest days are kind of not blurry, but like I don't have like a very vivid recollection of what those first 6 months were like. I will say that I have very strategically placed things into my life on a daily basis that, so I've got this thing called the 3 C's. And the 3 C's are, I guess, is what I can point to for my success in life today.
Okay, get out your notepads, everybody.
But basically, it starts with commitment, right? And commitment is the first C. So no one's going to hold a gun to your head. You know what I mean? Like, commitment is like one of those things that is like, it is going to require work, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to be, in some cases, super painful to commit to changing a drastic part of your life. You want to be a billionaire? There's a lot of commitment that comes with that. You want to be a millionaire? There's a lot of commitment that comes with that. You want to stop drinking? Commitment. You want to, stop overeating?
Have a beautiful marriage.
Have a beautiful marriage. Be a great leader and a father, and like those things. Like it requires commitment and sacrifice. So commitment is the one that I can just tell you that is going to require the most work out of the 3 C's, right?
Yeah.
However, if you can commit, the beauty of commitment is that it breeds confidence. So you commit, the longer you commit, the more confidence blossoms for your life. So you commit, you get a bump of confidence. You commit, you get a bigger bump of confidence. Before you know it, your confidence is now, you are now a confident human, right? And courage is the last C. All great things come on the backside of courage. Courage tends to be, in my, the way I say with my kids every night, I ask my kids, we go through this whole thing before I put them down, and I say, you guys can be anything you want to be. You just have to do it for yourself and nobody else. And what's it going to take? And they say courage. And I say, what is courage? And they say, being afraid and doing it anyway as long as it's for the good. And we say that every night before they go to bed, because I really do strongly believe from my story that you can do anything you want to do as long as you do it for yourself and nobody else. When you start doing it for somebody else, it's not courage. It is people pleasing, right? And I don't say that because they're still young, but that's ultimately what it is. Courage is something that you do for yourself, and it's going to require facing fear in the eyes. And
it's interesting because people pleasing, when you reverse engineer that, it's a strategy. It's the strategy you used when you were at the dinner table.
100%.
Right? It's like, because your number one need at that point in time was safety. And when you need safety, first and foremost, all the other stuff that you want is secondary to that. So it's always so interesting, right? Because courage is oftentimes going, yes, I need to feel safe, but I don't need to outsource that safety. As a child, you do. You don't have another choice. But as an adult, it's about cultivating a sense of safety in and of yourself. So
I would push back a little bit on that, though, because I think courage is from my experience, I really do believe that stepping into courage is requiring you to step out of your safe zone. Like,
that's what I'm saying. But it's oftentimes people don't, because they are so afraid of what they'll do to themselves. They don't go to courage because they don't feel safe. They go to people pleasing. Mm-hmm. And what I'm saying is people have to be okay with themselves enough to know that even though I don't feel safe, I can still take courageous action.
So that is why I kind of I really thought through these 3 C's, because it's a loop, right? If you're struggling with courage, it's because, in my opinion, you haven't committed to the thing you really want to do for a long enough period of time to gain the confidence.
Totally agree with that.
So if you're like there and you've got an opportunity to take the leap and make the choice, but you're like, I can't, then I always say, okay, well then let's go back to commitment and let's look at what you committed to, and maybe it was the wrong thing, or maybe you really didn't commit, because if you can get back to commitment and then and stick with it, when people
take the feedback in the loop and then go back to the beginning. Yeah,
right.
Totally.
You go to a restaurant, call it your favorite restaurant, right? One of your 3-4 favorite restaurants, and you go there, and you love the whatever, chopped salad for ease of restaurant items. You love the chopped salad. And you go to your favorite restaurant, and you're like just looking forward to getting your favorite big, awesome chopped salad. You love it. And you go there and you order the chopped salad, and the chopped salad comes out, and it's just not what you've been getting for the last 2 years. It's fucking different. And you're just like, that sucks. You're pissed. You know what I mean? Like, you're not happy.
Yeah.
The restaurant didn't commit to you. The restaurant consistency has been altered. Mm-hmm. You are going to have a problem now with that restaurant because they left out the bacon bites or whatever it is, right? That
crucial error.
Crucial error.
Yeah,
you don't want to fuck with the bacon.
Don't mess with my fucking bacon, people.
Right. Yeah. So I kind of think of that similarly. Like, in the restaurant, consistency is everything, right? I was a restaurateur for a long time. Like, it's the same thing as commitment in your life, right? Like, if you get to that place where you can make the choice and you don't have it there, it's not there, something's off. Mm-hmm. Okay, now I got to go back to commitment.
I got to go back.
Restaurant, guest says, hey, this sucks. Chef's got to go back to the drawing board. He's got to pull out the recipe and be like, holy shit, where did we fuck up? We got to recommit. Everybody.
It was the bacon.
So yeah, the whole staff has got to look at this and say, hey, like, we're sending out chopped salads that don't have this. Everybody has to agree. This can never happen again. These salads got to go out this way, or else we're going to lose the staff.
No doubt. I love any analogy that has bacon in it, first of all. Second of all, I think that is such a key takeaway for people, right? Is to follow that loop, because it really does all come down to how we're creating our reality, and to have these sort of boundaries around, okay, how am I showing up around this commitment? Mm-hmm. How is courage representing itself here? And how is courage showing up or not showing up in ways that I feel are actually moving me in the direction that I want to go? And I think that is such a reality check right? And nobody else is going to be able to answer those questions for you the way that you're going to be able to answer them for yourself if you are being honest with yourself. And to your earlier point, not hijacking what that looks like for anybody else in your life, whatever their expectations of you are, or whatever their desires of you are, whatever their disappointments of you are. It really does come down to, wait a second, and does this feel aligned for me? And is this moving me in the direction that I really, truly most desire to go? And if not, then you get to go back to this drawing board. And it's simple and it's clear. And I think that everybody can relate to it and follow that feedback loop. So bravo.
Thanks.
Bravo
I
for
just
that recipe. That life recipe is really what it is.
I just think it's simple, right?
Yeah.
It's simple. I mean, life is hard. It's not going to be easy, no matter how you slice it, especially if you're trying to do something great. And that great doesn't mean, writing a New York Times bestseller for some people. That great could mean staying sober. That great could mean running 2 miles instead of 1. That great could mean getting that promotion at work.
Yeah. And it's not something that, in today's culture, everybody wants to compare. And that's not something you can compare. That is like a deeply embedded code in terms of what you're here for and what truly lights you up. And so often we do hijack what other people want to see from us or what they think, you should be a doctor, you should be a lawyer. You hear that, your parents going, you should this, you should that, you should this, you look around your society and go, well, that person has all the accolades. Maybe I should want to do that, but really just turning to that internal compass and letting that sort of guide you to your North Star. What's ahead for you? We've looked at the past, we've looked at the present, like what's on the horizon?
Well, I mean, after I sold the last restaurant concept in 2019, I launched a business called Creatures of Habit. And Creatures of Habit it's a lifestyle and wellness brand that is just far more aligned with my passion for life. Wellness has really been the sort of catalyst to my happiness. And I'd never had a direct alignment to work with this insane passion that I have. So when the pandemic hit and nobody was investing in restaurants, not myself included, I took a pivot and I said, hey, like it's time for me to try and see if I have the chops to take what I've learned from this restaurant business that I've been in for a long time into something else. And I had a lot of commitment there. I built a lot of confidence, and then ultimately I had the courage to just say, all right, I'm gonna just do this. And so I started this CPG company. And funny enough, I went on a long run. It all kind of came to me on the run. I came back from that run. I told my wife what I was going to do, which was basically that guy Marcus that told me to eat that oatmeal when I first got sober as my first meal every day. Well, I'd listened to him, and I'd been eating oatmeal for, at that point, which was 4 years ago, 16 years every single day. And, if I would obviously I would mix it up every once in a while, but that was my first meal every day. I made this concoction. It was one of my favorite things to eat. I'd added a bunch of stuff to it, and it was just always what I ate for my first meal every day. And I was on this run, and I said, you know what? This is like arguably the most authentic thing to me in terms of food and habit, because it kickstarted my passion for eating healthy. It gave me a quick, easy win every morning because this guy who I looked up to told me that it was going to help change my life and my how I looked and how I felt and how I performed. I stuck to it, and it works. It works. This is the meal that I've been eating through all the kind of success I've had. If I can figure out a way to how to get all those ingredients that I put into my oatmeal plus my morning supplements into a pouch, I will have a product that I really stand behind because it's been 16 years in the making, and it's really helped create me. And then I'll also be able to tell my story, which is anybody can change at any time. All it's going to take is all you've got. And that was that. I went out I started a company, and I reached out to everybody I knew in the world of consumer packaged goods. And I said, hey, what can I, who can I talk to? And I started, coming up with the formula. And I created this product called Meal One, which is gluten and glyphosate free oats, 30 grams of protein, plant-based protein. It's got chia seeds, flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, and pink Himalayan salt in it. It's got vitamin D3, a probiotic, digestive enzymes, and you make it overnight. So it takes 30 seconds to make before you go to bed, and you pull it out of the fridge in the morning. You add a little almond milk to it to loosen it up again, and you just eat it. And you never think about breakfast. And it's getting you 30 grams of protein plus 30 grams of carbs and 10 grams of fat. So it's a full meal. And I was like, man, like this little thing really was a catalyst for me. And now I'm making it my life's work.
Yeah, the little things are often the biggest things. Going back to sort of the beginning of the podcast where we're talking about simplicity.
Yeah.
Right? It is these simple little rituals. It is these simple little moments of awareness, of gratitude, the little actions, that one little thing that can make all the difference, right? That one window of time when you reach out your hand and say, this is the window. This is where it all can happen for me.
Well, I also said, like, this, for me, the commit, confidence, courage thing, right? Like, you're not going to be able to commit to everything all at once. But my plan with the business was not to open up an oatmeal company, even though that's what my wife thought I was doing. She's like, you're fucking crazy. You're going from 13 restaurants to selling oatmeal. And I was like,
maybe, no.
All I really wanted to help people do was be able to give them one thing to commit to.
It's beautiful.
It's one thing to commit to, right? So if you're stuck in this courage thing, like, let's go back to figuring out one thing to commit to consistently. Commit to it.
How often can you say that about a food product that you buy? That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, and it tastes really good, and it's also really healthy for you. But like at the end of the day, this was the idea, and I'm not like, I am in the oatmeal business, but the mission of the company has nothing to do with oatmeal. The mission of the company is, hey, like, better decisions make for a better life. It's that simple. It's just that simple. And if I can be a part of that process by giving you something, it's hard to sell a habit. I can't sell you going to bed early. I can't sell you waking up. I can't sell you going to the gym. I can't sell you someone to hold your hand all day while, making decisions for you while you eat and drink. I can't. But I can sell you something that could be a reminder every single day. Hey, this one thing may bring the needle up a little bit for you. And so I spent a year working on it. I came up with a great formula. I pitched it to Gary Vaynerchuk, of all people. He fell in love with it. He was the first check in, and we raised money, and we launched it. We're 3 years in, and knock on wood, I am like...
You've gone from good to great, just like that.
I can't believe that I'm sitting here, talking to you about this business and feeling like unbelievably fulfilled. And it was literally just one foot in front of the other,
If anybody is not inspired by this man, this story, this journey, we need to have a conversation.
Thank you.
I'm going to wrap it up with our final question that we ask everybody that comes on this show. And that is in reference to the title, Look at Me Now. So if I were to give you a mirror, could be handheld, could be full length, you decide, and you were to gaze into that mirror and have a moment with the most important person in your life, the only one who has been on every step of this journey with you. If you were to look into that mirror and see that person, that is you and all the yous that you've been up until this moment, staring back at you, what do you want to acknowledge? What do you want to validate? What do you want to reflect to yourself in the agency that you have, having just relived this story over the course of this conversation? This is not about the external gaze of what the world sees in you or doesn't see in you, would like to see in you, doesn't care about you, whatever. What do you want to reflect to yourself in this Look at Me Now moment?
Whew, what a question. Holy smokes. I'd say thank you for asking for a lot of help along the way. Thank you for being humble enough to ask for as much help as possible, because that's what's gotten me here. the help from others. I also want to say thank you for seeing your weaknesses and not beating yourself up because of them. Because before that would be a real thing where I would zero in on the weakness and try to fix it or try to figure out how to like immediately change them. And now I'm just like having patience with the fact that I have weaknesses and it's okay. And I'd want to say that sometimes you question, if you're a great father or not and a great husband or not. And you do that because your ego is still trying to sneak its way in to give you a reason to self-sabotage. But you fucking know you're a great husband and a great father. God, that makes me emotional. Whew,
I know. I'm like, I'm not crying, you're crying. We're both crying. This is...
But,
I mean, yeah, what a beautiful moment of reflection. And I don't think enough of us take the time to do that every day.
Wow, that got me.
Yeah. You're not alone. It does most guests that come on here. And I will say, on top of my massive appreciation for your honesty in answering that question, I have a mentor that once told me, so often we don't realize that what we see as our own weaknesses are actually our superpowers. We don't realize that Superman wouldn't be Superman if there wasn't kryptonite. And sometimes it's just about looking at the fact that we will never live a one-sided existence. We're going to have light as much as we are going to have shadow. And to embrace that kryptonite because it's what makes us superheroes.
I'll take that one with me.
Yeah. So thank you so much for letting me tackle you in the hallway and bring you into this conversation and for sharing this really incredible story with the people who are listening. Again, if you are not inspired by this, please call me. We have to talk. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. That is another episode of Look at Me Now in the books, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Join us for Look at Me Now wherever you listen to podcasts, and be sure to share, like, and subscribe.